The festival lights painted the colony in bright colors. Music filled the air as different alien species celebrated together on the diplomatic colony of Kreshava. The planet Thoral 4 stretched beyond the settlement, covered in ancient forests with trees that reached toward the purple sky. Tonight was special. The Vakthor people were celebrating their cubs. 15 young Vakthor played near the forest edge. They were beautiful in their own way, standing almost 4 feet tall even as children. Their dark purple bodies were covered in hard plates like armor. Forearms moved as they chased each other and laughed in their clicking language. Sharp claws caught the light. These were not soft creatures. Even as cubs, they could tear through metal if they wanted to. 5 adult Vakthor watched the cubs play. They stood 7 feet tall, powerful, and alert. Their species were known across the galaxy as warriors and hunters. Few creatures scared them. Their homeworld had made them strong, and they had brought that strength to the stars. Matriarch Rekva stood among the watchers. 3 of the playing cubs were hers. She was the leader of this colony, responsible for every Vakthor here. She watched her children play and felt pride. They were growing well, strong, healthy. Soon they would begin their training as hunters. The sun began to set. The forest beyond seemed to grow darker, deeper. One of the cubs stopped playing. Its head tilted, nostrils flaring. The other cubs noticed. One by one, they all turned toward the forest. Something glowed between the trees. Soft blue lights danced in the shadows. Pretty. Fascinating. The cubs moved closer to see better. The adults called to them, but the cubs seemed not to hear. They walked toward the lights, drawn like moths to a flame. One adult rushed forward to grab them, but the cubs were already past the tree line. The lights seemed to dance deeper into the forest. The cubs followed. Within moments, they vanished into the darkness between the massive trees. Rekva ran to the forest edge. She called for her cubs. Her voice was strong, commanding. Silence answered her. The other parents joined her, calling, pleading. Nothing. The forest was quiet except for the wind through the leaves. Within minutes, alarms rang through the colony. Every species heard them. Every light turned on. Commander Thakran arrived quickly, his forearms already reaching for weapons. He was the colony's security chief, a veteran of many battles. He had never lost anyone under his watch. He did not plan to start now. 20 warriors gathered. They wore armor and carried energy weapons. They had scanners that could see heat through walls. They had lights that could turn night into day. They were ready for anything. Thakran led them into the forest. The trees here were old, so thick that 3 Vakthor could not wrap their arms around them. The canopy above blocked the stars. Their lights cut through the darkness, but the forest seemed to swallow the beams. The scanners found nothing. No heat signatures. No movement. It was as if the cubs had simply disappeared. Thakran pushed deeper. His warriors spread out, searching every shadow, every hollow tree, every rock. Then the forest attacked. Something huge moved in the darkness. A warrior screamed as claws raked across his armor. Another was pulled into the bushes. Thakran fired his weapon, but the creature was already gone. More shapes moved around them. The warriors formed a circle, backs together, weapons pointing outward. The native predators of Thoral 4 were hunting. These creatures were 6-legged, fast, and smart. They hunted in packs. They knew the forest was theirs. These armored visitors were invaders. Thakran made the hard choice. He ordered retreat. 2 warriors were injured, bleeding from deep cuts that went through their armor. They had been in the forest for 6 hours. They had found nothing. The cubs were still missing. Back at the colony, Rekva waited. She saw the warriors return without her children. Something inside her chest felt like it was breaking. She was a warrior herself. She had faced death many times. But this was different. This was her children lost in the dark. Ambassador Kip called an emergency meeting. The insectoid diplomat stood before representatives of 12 different species. Everyone had ideas. The Centaurian suggested orbital strikes to clear the forest. The Trell wanted to deploy robots. The Vorns offered to use chemical markers to track the cubs. Every idea had problems. Orbital strikes might kill the cubs. Robots would take days to build and deploy. Chemical markers would not work through the dense forest floor. Hour after hour passed. The temperature outside was dropping. The cubs were young. They would be cold, scared, maybe hurt. Dr. Yuna sat quietly in the back of the room. She was human, the chief xenobiologist at the small human embassy. She had been thinking. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was not loud, but it cut through the arguing. There is someone who might help. A human. He studies the forest. He knows it better than anyone here. Commander Thakran turned to look at her. His eyes were hard. A human? Humans were small, weak. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced senses. What could a human do that his warriors could not? Dr. Yuna met his stare. I know how it sounds. But Han Sol has been studying the predators here for months. He goes into the forest alone. He comes back alive. Every time, the room fell silent. Ambassador Kip's antennae twitched with interest. How does he do this? I do not fully understand it myself, Yuna admitted. But he does not fight the predators. He does something else. Something humans are good at. More arguing followed. Some thought it was foolish to trust a human with something so important. Others said they had no better options. The hours dragged on. Dawn was coming. The cubs had been missing all night. Finally, Matriarch Rekva stood. Everyone stopped talking. She walked to Dr. Yuna. The human woman was tiny compared to the 7-foot warrior. Rekva looked down at her. Her voice was rough with emotion. Bring your human, please. My children are out there. I do not care about pride anymore. I do not care about what anyone thinks. I just want them home. Dr. Yuna nodded. She sent a message immediately. Miles away in a small research station at the forest's edge, Han Sol was watching his monitors. He studied footage of a large predator moving through the trees. He was noting how it placed its feet, how it tested the air. He was learning its language, the language of movement and scent and sound. His communicator beeped. He read the message. 15 cubs missing. Warriors failed. Come immediately. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and began packing a small bag. He did not pack weapons. He did not pack scanners or armor. He packed water, some dried food, a basic medical kit, and a walking stick. He pulled on a simple jacket and started walking toward the colony. The colony was in chaos when he arrived. Families were crying. Warriors were being treated for wounds. Rekva stood in the center of it all, her face a mask of control hiding the storm inside. Han Sol walked through the crowd. He was not impressive to look at. Medium height for a human, which meant short compared to most species here. Thin build, no visible weapons. He wore simple clothes and carried only a small backpack. He moved quietly like he was trying not to disturb anyone. Dr. Yuna met him and led him to Matriarch Rekva. The Vakthor leader looked at this small human and felt doubt, but she pushed it aside. She explained what happened. The lights. The cubs following them into the forest. The failed rescue attempt. Han Sol listened carefully. He asked a few questions. What time exactly did they disappear? Which direction? Did the cubs seem afraid or curious? Rekva answered as best she could. Commander Thakran approached. You think you can find them? You? He did not hide his doubt. Han Sol looked at him calmly. I do not know yet. I need to see where they entered the forest. They took him to the spot. Han Sol knelt down. He did not look at the ground the way the warriors had, searching for footprints. He looked at everything. The grass bent a certain way. Moss displaced on a rock. A small branch broken at an odd angle. He touched the soil gently, sniffed it, rubbed it between his fingers. The watching aliens did not understand what he was doing. It looked like nothing. But Han Sol was reading a story written in the language of the forest. He stood and walked slowly along the tree line, eyes scanning. He stopped, knelt again, looked up at the trees. They were not taken, he said quietly. They followed something willingly, something that fascinated them. He stood and looked into the dark forest. I will need to go alone. Thakran started to protest. Rekva silenced him with a gesture. She looked at Han Sol. Her voice was steady, but he could hear the fear beneath it. Bring them home, please. Han Sol met her eyes. He saw a mother's terror. He nodded once. Then he turned and walked into the forest. Within moments, the darkness swallowed him. Behind him, the colony waited in fear and hope. The forest closed around Han Sol like a living thing. The massive trees blocked most of the morning light. Shadows lay thick between the trunks. He could hear the colony behind him, voices fading as he walked deeper. Soon there was only the sound of the forest itself. Back at the colony command center, Dr. Wesk adjusted his monitor. The Trell scientist floated in his water-filled mobility suit. watching the small camera feed from Han Sol's jacket. Ambassador Kip stood beside him, along with Dr. Yuna and a reluctant Commander Thakran. They would watch everything. Han Sol moved slowly through the forest. His steps were careful, deliberate. He did not crash through bushes or snap branches. He moved like water flowing around rocks. The forest seemed to accept him. He stopped often to examine things. A patch of moss pressed down by small feet, claw marks on tree bark at the right height for cubs. He touched a leaf and brought it to his nose. On the camera feed, the watchers saw him nod slightly. "What is he doing?" Thakran asked. "It looks like nothing." Dr. Yuna watched the screen. "He is reading. The forest is a book if you know the language." Han Sol's quiet voice came through the speaker. He was narrating for Dr. Wesk's scientific record. The cubs followed bioluminescent spores, probably from the blue ghost fungus. It grows deep in the forest. The spores have a chemical that affects their nervous system. Like a drug. They would have felt happy, curious. "No fear at all. Can you track them?" Yuna asked through the communicator. "Yes, they left plenty of signs. They were playing, not hiding." He paused at a tree. "See this sap? Fresh. A cub climbed here. Recent. Within the last few hours." Thakran leaned closer to the monitor. His scanners found nothing. "This human sees marks in tree sap?" Han Sol continued deeper. The forest grew darker, older. The trees here were ancient, their bark thick and rough. Vines hung like curtains. The air smelled of earth and growing things and something else. Something wild. He froze. In the command center, everyone leaned forward. Something was moving in the shadows ahead. Something big. A creature emerged from behind a massive tree trunk. It was one of the native predators. 6 legs, each ending in claws that could tear metal. A long body covered in dark scales. A head that was mostly mouth filled with teeth designed for killing. It was the size of a large bear from Earth. The predator spotted Han Sol immediately. It stopped. Its head lowered. Every muscle tensed. "Move," Thakran shouted at the screen. "Run." Han Sol did not run. He did not reach for a weapon. Slowly, carefully, he lowered himself to the ground. He sat. Then he turned his body slightly away from the predator. He looked down at the ground, not at the creature. "What is he doing?" Thakran's voice was tight with tension. "That thing will kill him." Yuna put a hand on the commander's arm. "Watch." The predator moved closer. Slow steps, cautious. Its nostrils flared, testing Han Sol's scent. The human sat very still. He began to hum softly, a low, calm sound. Not a threat, not prey behavior either, something the predator did not understand. Han Sol spoke quietly, his words barely audible. "I am not food. I am not a threat. I am just passing through." His tone was more important than the words. Calm, respectful, patient. The predator circled him. Han Sol did not turn to watch it. That would signal fear or challenge. He kept his eyes down, his body relaxed. Minutes passed like hours. The predator sniffed closer. Its breath was hot on the back of Han Sol's neck. In the command center, no one breathed. Matriarch Rekva had joined them. She watched this small human sit calmly before a creature that could kill him in seconds. Her 4 hands were clenched into fists. The predator made a decision. This strange creature was not prey. It did not smell right. It did not act right. There were other things to hunt. The predator stepped back, turned, and melted into the shadows. Within moments, it was gone. Han Sol waited another full minute before standing. He brushed off his pants and continued walking. His voice was steady as he narrated. The predator was curious, not hunting. Most predators do not want to fight. Fighting risks injury. Injury means death in the wild. Better to avoid conflict when possible. Thakran stared at the monitor. "I do not understand. That creature is an apex predator. It fears nothing." Dr. Wesk's tentacles rippled with excitement. Fascinating. The human used non-threatening body language. He made himself appear neutral. Not prey, not competitor, just another creature in the forest. The predator had no reason to attack. But how does he know this works? Thakran demanded. "One mistake and he dies." Yuna smiled slightly. Humans evolved on a world full of predators. Big cats, bears, wolves, crocodiles. Our ancestors survived by understanding them. We learned to read their body language, to avoid triggering their hunting instincts. It is in our nature now. Han Sol walked for another hour. He found more signs. The cubs had stopped here to rest. They had played there. The spore trail was weakening. The cubs would be coming down from the chemical high soon. They would realize they were lost. Fear would set in. He found a clearing where the cubs had clearly spent time. The ground was torn up from their playing. Small branches were broken. He knelt and touched a footprint in soft earth. Still fresh, maybe 2 hours old. I am close, he said quietly. They are not far now. But there is a problem. What problem? Rekva's voice came through the speaker, tight with worry. Hansol pointed his camera at tracks in the mud. These are fresh, too. Different predator, bigger. It is following the cub's trail. The tracks were huge. Each footprint was the size of Hansol's head. 4 clawed toes, deep impressions showing the creature's weight. Dr. Wesk checked his database. Oh no, that is a forest serpent. The apex predator of this region. Extremely dangerous. Extremely territorial. And it hunts at dawn. Dawn was now. Light was just starting to filter through the canopy. Hunting time. Hansol moved faster now. Not running. Running would make noise, disturb the forest, possibly trigger a chase response from predators. But he walked with purpose, following the tracks. He heard something. A soft chittering. The sound of scared Vakthor cubs. He moved toward it carefully, watching every shadow. There. A rocky outcrop with an overhang. The cubs had taken shelter there. He could see them huddled together. All 15. They were alive. But they were frightened now, making distress calls. Calls that would attract predators from miles around. Hansol approached slowly. The cubs saw him. Immediately they bristled. Their small claws extended. Their plates spread slightly, making them look bigger. They showed their teeth. Even scared, they were dangerous. Even cubs, they were predators. In the command center, Rekva made a sound of distress. They will attack him. They are too scared to recognize he means no harm. Hansol stopped 10 feet away. He sat down on the forest floor. He turned slightly to the side. Then he began to hum. The same calm sound from before, low, steady, peaceful. The cubs watched him with wide eyes. Their chittering quieted slightly. He did not look at them directly. He just sat there, patient, calm, showing no fear, showing no threat. Predator young fear 2 things most, he said softly to his recorder. Threats and abandonment. I am showing them I am neither. I will not hurt them. And I will not leave them. Minutes passed. The cubs began to relax slightly. One made a soft, questioning sound. Hansol answered with a gentle tone. Not words they understood, but emotion. Calm, safety, protection. Then the forest went silent. Every small sound stopped. Every bird, every insect. Silence in a forest means only one thing. A major predator is near. The forest serpent emerged from the shadows like nightmare-made flesh. It was massive, 20 feet long. Its body was covered in dark scales that gleamed like oil. 4 powerful legs ended in claws that could disembowel prey with one swipe. Its head was triangular, serpentine, with eyes that glowed yellow in the dim light. Its mouth opened slightly, showing rows of curved teeth. The cubs screamed in terror. They pressed back against the rocks. They were trapped. The serpent blocked the only escape route. In the command center, Rekva's voice was broken. No. No. My babies. Hansol stood up. Slowly. Carefully. He did not run. He did not shout. He stepped between the serpent and the cubs. His body language was clear. These are under my protection. The serpent's head swayed. Its eyes focused on this small creature that dared stand before it. Hansol met its gaze. Not staring. Not challenging. Just acknowledging. I see you. I respect you. But I will not move, the serpent hissed. A sound that made the watching aliens flinch. But Hansol did not flinch. He stood his ground. Behind him, one brave cub crept forward and pressed against his leg. Seeking protection. The gesture was universal across species. This is my guardian. The serpent tilted its head. Something in Hansol's scent. Something in his stance. It was familiar somehow. The serpent made a low rumbling sound. From the shadows behind it, smaller shapes appeared. Cubs, the serpent's own young. 3 of them, each the size of a large dog. Understanding flooded through Hansol. This was not a hunt. This was a parent protecting territory. The serpent had young nearby. It was being defensive, not aggressive. Just like he was. Hansol slowly sat down again. The Vakthor cubs clustered around him now. recognizing safety. He kept his eyes on the serpent, but his posture remained non-threatening. "I understand," his body language said. "You have young to protect. So do I. No conflict needed." The serpent watched for long moments. Then slowly it backed away. Its cubs followed. It gave Hansol one last look. Hansol opened his backpack and pulled out a water bottle. The cubs watched his every movement with intense curiosity. He took a slow sip, then held out the bottle toward them. One cub, braver than the others, stretched out a small hand and touched the bottle. Hansol let it take the bottle and sniff it. The cub tasted the water carefully. Finding it safe, it drank a little. The others crowded forward, chittering. Hansol had 2 more bottles. He let them share. They were thirsty after their night in the forest. Next, he pulled out dried food bars. These were made for multiple species, safe for almost anyone to eat. He broke them into small pieces and offered them. The cubs ate hungrily. As they ate, they began to relax even more. Food meant safety. Food meant someone caring for them. In the command center, Matriarch Rekva watched with tears streaming down her face. "He is feeding them. He is caring for my children like they are his own." Dr. Yuna smiled. "That is what humans do. We are social creatures. We care for young, even young that are not our own species. It is instinct for us." Hansol noticed that some of the cubs had burrs and sticky sap in their plates. He pulled out a small comb from his kit. Gently, carefully, he began grooming one of the cubs. He removed the debris from between their armored plates, being careful not to pull or hurt them. The cub he was grooming made a soft, happy sound. The others pushed forward, wanting the same treatment. Hansol smiled slightly. Grooming was a parental behavior. It said, "I care about you. You are part of my family." The cubs understood this on a deep level. He spent nearly 30 minutes grooming all 15 cubs. They settled down around him, content and calm. Some began to play gently with each other. The fear was leaving them. They felt safe. Commander Thakran watched the monitor in silence. He was struggling with everything he was seeing. His entire life he had believed strength was about weapons and armor and the ability to dominate. This human had none of those things, yet he had achieved what armed warriors could not. The commander felt his worldview cracking. "All right," Hansol said softly. "Time to go home. Who wants to see their parents?" The cubs chittered excitedly. They understood tone even if not words. Home. Parents. Safety. Yes. They wanted that. Hansol stood and began walking back the way he came. He did not hurry. He did not try to force the cubs to follow. He simply walked, confident and calm. The cubs followed him naturally. They stayed close like ducklings following a mother duck. They trusted him completely now. The journey back took hours. The forest was still dangerous. Hansol moved carefully, alert for any threats. Twice he spotted predators watching from the shadows. Each time he stopped. He positioned himself between the predators and the cubs. He maintained calm, non-threatening body language. Each time, the predators observed for a while and then moved on. No point attacking a group that showed no fear and no weakness. The cubs began to play as they walked. They would run ahead, then scamper back to Hansol. They wrestled with each other. They were children again, not frightened refugees. Hansol watched them with a small smile. Young creatures were the same across the galaxy, full of energy and curiosity. One small cub kept very close to Hansol. It held onto his jacket with one small hand. This one had been the most frightened. Now it had bonded strongly with its rescuer. Hansol reached down occasionally to pat its head gently. Dr. Wesk was recording everything. His scientific mind was racing. The implications of what he was witnessing were enormous. Humans had an ability that no other species possessed. They could communicate across species barriers. They could form bonds with creatures that should be enemies. This was not just training or technique. This was something deep in human nature. Ambassador Kip watched thoughtfully. The galactic community has misunderstood humans. We saw them as weak because they have no natural weapons. We saw them as unremarkable because they are not the strongest or fastest. But we missed something important. What did we miss? Thakran asked. That being able to avoid a fight is a greater skill than winning one. The ambassador's antennae waved slowly. Humans evolved by being smart, not strong. They survived by understanding, not dominating. That is a very different kind of strength. The forest began to thin. Hansol was approaching the colony's perimeter. Sensors picked up his approach. Alarms chimed. Security rushed to the boundary. Dr. Yuna immediately sent an urgent message to all security. Stand down. Do not show weapons. Do not make sudden movements. The cubs are calm. Keep them that way. The security team obeyed, though it went against their training. They lowered their weapons and stepped back. They created a wide path. Hansol emerged from the tree line. Behind him, following in a loose group, came all 15 cubs. They were dirty, tired, but completely unhurt. They walked calmly, occasionally looking up at their guide. A crowd had gathered. Every species in the colony was there. Word had spread. Everyone wanted to see if the human would succeed. Now they stared in disbelief. It was impossible. Yet it was happening. Parents pushed forward. Rekva was at the front, her forearms reaching out. Hansol held up one hand gently. A request for patience. Let the cubs come on their own. Do not startle them with rushed movements. Rekva understood. She stopped. She called to her cubs softly. Her voice was full of love and relief. The cubs heard their parents. Their eyes went wide. They squealed with joy and ran forward. The reunion was chaos. Cubs leaping into parental arms. Parents sobbing with relief. Other families joining in. 15 sets of parents holding their children, checking them for injuries, covering them with kisses. Hansol stepped back, letting them have their moment. He was tired. The adrenaline was wearing off. His legs felt shaky, but he felt good. The cubs were safe. That was what mattered. When the first wave of reunion emotions passed, Matriarch Rekva looked around for Hansol. She found him standing quietly at the edge of the crowd, trying not to intrude on the family moments. She walked over to him. Her shadow covered him. He was so small compared to her, so fragile looking. The crowd grew quiet, watching. Rekva looked down at this human. This creature her people had dismissed as weak. This small being who had walked into a deadly forest and brought back her children alive. Slowly, deliberately, Rekva dropped to one knee. She placed all 4 of her hands on the ground. It was the highest gesture of respect in Vakthor culture, reserved for honored elders, for heroes, for those who had earned the deepest gratitude. The other Vakthor saw this. One by one, they knelt as well. Parents, warriors, everyone. Even Commander Thakren, watching from the command center, felt his knees bend in instinctive respect. Hansol looked uncomfortable. He was not used to this kind of attention. I just did what was needed, he said quietly. Rekva's voice was thick with emotion. You brought my children home. All of them, breathing, unharmed. My warriors could not do it. My technology could not do it. But you did. With nothing but knowledge and courage. She reached out one hand. Hansol took it. Her hand was huge, clawed, powerful. His was small, soft, weak by comparison. But in that moment, everyone watching understood that strength came in many forms. I give you a name, Rekva said. In our language, Kishtan, it means one who walks between teeth. You walk safely where predators hunt. You are under my protection now. You are family. Hansol bowed his head. Thank you. That is a great honor. The small cub who had held Hansol's jacket broke free from its parent. It ran back to Hansol and pressed against his leg. It made a soft sound. Then it reached into a small pouch on its belt and pulled out a smooth stone, dark blue, polished by the forest river. The cub placed the stone in Hansol's hand. Dr. Yuna whispered to the others watching. That is a gift gesture in Vakthor culture. The cub is giving him something precious. Saying thank you, Hansol knelt down to the cub's level. He accepted the stone gravely. Thank you, little one. I will keep this always. The cub chirped happily and ran back to its parent. Commander Thakren left the command center and walked to where Hansol stood. The human looked up at the massive warrior. Thakren's face was hard to read, but his eyes were different now. The contempt was gone. I was wrong about your kind, Thakren said simply. I thought you weak. I was the fool. The warrior's hands clenched and unclenched. Teach me how you did this. I want to learn. Hansol studied him for a moment, then nodded. I can teach you the techniques. But the most important thing cannot be taught. It must be felt. You must respect the predators. Not fear them. Not hate them. Respect them. Understand they are just trying to survive, like all of us. Thakren nodded slowly. I will try to learn this. Ambassador Kip approached with Dr. Wesk. The insectoid diplomat's antennae were waving excitedly. This incident will be reported to the Galactic Council. I believe it will change how the galaxy sees humanity. Han Sol looked alarmed. I hope this does not become a big thing. I just want to go back to my research. Dr. Yuna laughed. Too late for that. You just proved that humans have a unique skill. The galaxy has many warriors. It has many scientists, but humans are the only ones who can walk between teeth, who can make peace with the dangerous and the deadly. Over the next hours, the celebration continued. Food was brought out. Music played. The cubs were checked by doctors and found perfectly healthy. Parents could not stop touching their children, grateful to have them back. Han Sol tried to slip away, but the cubs noticed. 6 months had passed since the night the cubs went missing. The colony on Thorol 4 had changed in ways no one expected. The change was not in the buildings or technology. It was in the minds of those who lived there. Commander Thakran stood at the edge of the forest watching the trees. He wore no armor today. No weapons. Just simple clothes and a small pack like the one Han Sol carried. He was learning. It was harder than any combat training he had ever done. Han Sol stood beside him, pointing at marks on a tree trunk. See how the bark is scratched here? Fresh, made within the last day. Something large climbed this tree. The pattern shows 4 claws. Probably the forest cat we spotted last week. Thakran leaned closer, studying the marks. 6 months ago, he would have seen nothing. Now he was starting to understand. The forest was full of messages if you knew how to read them. 3 other students watched nearby. A young Vakthor warrior, a Centaurian scientist, a Trell explorer, all learning the human way of understanding predators. Word had spread through the colony. Those who wanted to work with the forest instead of against it came to study with Han Sol. The rescued cubs, now 6 months older, often played near Han Sol's research station. Their parents allowed it. They trusted him completely. The cubs had grown, but they still remembered their friend. They still brought him gifts. Stones. Interesting leaves. Once a dead rodent which Han Sol accepted with solemn thanks before quietly disposing of it later. Dr. Wesk had published his research paper. It had caused a sensation in the scientific community. The paper was titled, Human Predator Psychology, an Evolutionary Advantage in Interspecies Communication. Scientists across the galaxy were reading it, arguing about it, trying to understand it. The basic idea was simple but profound. Most species evolved as either prey or predators. Prey species developed intelligence to escape. Predator species developed intelligence to hunt better. Humans were unique. They evolved as persistence hunters who also had to survive encounters with larger predators. This created a special psychology. Humans understood both sides. Dr. Yuna had been promoted. She now led a new division called the Galactic Ecological Response Team. Its purpose was to handle situations where wildlife and civilization clashed. Humans were the core of the team, but other species who showed aptitude were welcomed. The team was small but growing. Ambassador Kip had spoken at the Galactic Council. The speech was memorable. The ambassador had shown footage of Han Sol walking out of the forest with the cubs. The council chamber had been silent as they watched. Then the questions began. How did he do it? Could this be taught? Were humans dangerous because of this ability? That last question worried some council members. If humans could so easily understand and manipulate predators, what did that say about humanity itself? Were humans predators pretending to be peaceful? The debate continued for weeks. Yuna had addressed those fears directly. Yes, humans are predators. We evolved as hunters, but we are also social creatures who form bonds across species lines. We domesticated wolves into dogs. We worked with horses, elephants, dolphins. We learned that cooperation is better than conflict. That is the real human advantage. Not the ability to fight, but the wisdom to choose not to. On Thorol 4, life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Then the forest began to change. It started small. A predator seen near the colony in daylight. Unusual, but not alarming. Then another. And another. Within a week, native predators were approaching the colony boundary regularly. They did not attack. They just watched, paced. Their body language showed stress. The colony council met. Some wanted to establish stronger barriers, energy fences, automated defense systems, make the predators leave through fear and force. Han Sol spoke against this. They are trying to tell us something. Predators do not abandon their territories without reason. Something is wrong in the forest. What could be wrong? Thakran asked. He trusted Hansol's judgment now. I need to investigate. Let me go into the forest and find out what is happening. Matriarch Rekva nodded. Take whoever you need, find the problem. We will not act until we understand. Hansol assembled a team. Commander Thakran insisted on coming. So did 3 of his students. Dr. Wesk wanted to document everything. They entered the forest at dawn. The signs were everywhere once they knew to look. Dead prey animals, not eaten, just dead. Burrows abandoned. Birds absent from areas where they should be numerous. The forest felt wrong, too quiet in some places, too loud in others. Hansol found the first nest after 2 hours of searching. It was built into the hollow of a fallen tree. Inside were eggs, dozens of them. Each egg was the size of a fist with a hard dark shell. Dr. Wesk scanned them. Oh no, these are Kresh eggs, invasive species. They should not be on this planet. What are Kresh? Thakran asked. Parasitic creatures. They lay eggs in host burrows. When the eggs hatch, the young eat everything. All the prey animals. They reproduce incredibly fast. If they are established here, the entire forest food chain will collapse. Hansol understood immediately. That is why the predators are coming near the colony. Their food sources are disappearing. They are desperate. Desperate predators are dangerous. They found more nests, dozens of them. The infestation was widespread. Some eggs had already hatched. They saw the young Kresh. They looked like large insects with too many legs and sharp mandibles. They moved in swarms, eating everything in their path. How did they get here? One of the students asked. Probably brought accidentally by off-world traders, Dr. Wesk said. It only takes a few eggs to start an infestation. They must have been here for months, breeding in secret. They returned to the colony with their findings. The council was alarmed. Some suggested burning sections of forest. Others wanted to use chemical treatments. Both options would kill many native creatures along with the Kresh. Hansol proposed something different. A radical idea. We work with the predators. They know the forest better than we do. They can help us find and destroy the nests. In return, we help them hunt the Kresh swarms. Work with predators? Many council members looked doubtful. How is that even possible? The same way I worked with the forest serpent 6 months ago. Through mutual benefit. The predators want the Kresh gone as much as we do. We have a common enemy now. That makes us allies. After much debate, the council agreed to try. They had learned to trust human methods. Hansol began planning the operation. 2 days later, Hansol led a team back into the forest. This time they carried special equipment. Not weapons for killing predators, tools for destroying nests, shovels, burning gel, sealed containers for eggs. They moved to an area where predators had been spotted frequently. Hansol found a clearing and set up camp. Then he waited. Thakran and the others watched nervously. Inviting predators to come close went against every survival instinct. The predators came. First the 6-legged hunter. Then a forest cat. Then 2 more creatures. They surrounded the camp, watching. Their body language was tense, uncertain. Hansol stood slowly. He held up a sealed container. Inside were dead Kresh. He opened it and showed the predators. Then he pointed deeper into the forest where they had spotted a large nest. He made digging motions. Destroying motions. The predators watched. Hansol could see them thinking. These strange creatures were showing them the enemy, offering to help destroy it. The 6-legged hunter moved first. It turned and began walking toward the nest location. The others followed. We are following predators into the forest, one student whispered. This is insane, no, Thakran said quietly. This is brilliant. We are all hunting the same prey now. They reached the nest. It was massive. Hundreds of eggs, some already hatching. The predators circled it, growling. They wanted to destroy this thing that was killing their forest. Hansol's team went to work. They dug up eggs and placed them in containers. They burned the nest structure. They crushed the newly hatched Kresh. The predators helped. They dug faster than any tool. They found hidden chambers the team would have missed. It took 6 hours to destroy the nest completely. When it was done, the predators made sounds of satisfaction. One of them, the 6-legged hunter, approached Hansol. It lowered its head, not threatening, acknowledging. Thank you, its body language said. Over the next 3 weeks, the pattern repeated. The team would find a nest. Predators would help destroy it. Slowly, the infestation was being eliminated. The forest began to recover. Prey animals returned. Birds sang again. The predators stopped approaching the colony. Their food sources were returning. They had no more reason to venture near civilization. But something had changed. The relationship between the colony and the forest was different now. Not enemies, not quite allies, but something new. Mutual respect that Ambassador Kip visited to observe the final phase of the cleanup. The insectoid diplomat watched as Han Sol worked alongside a massive forest serpent to dig out a deep nest. Neither creature feared the other. They simply worked together toward a common goal. This changes everything, Kip said to Dr. Yuna. If humans can teach other species to do this, to work with dangerous wildlife instead of fighting or fleeing, the applications are unlimited. That is the hope, Yuna agreed. But it takes patience, trust, the willingness to see predators as something other than enemies. Not every species can make that leap. 1 year had passed since the cubs vanished and returned. The seasons on Thorol 4 had completed a full cycle. The ancient forest had seen another spring, another summer, another autumn. Now winter approached again, but nothing else was the same as it had been. Han Sol sat in his research station, watching the morning mist rise from the forest floor. His hair was a bit longer now, a few more lines around his eyes. He had turned down 17 requests for help from other worlds. He could not be everywhere, but he had trained others who could go in his place. Commander Thakran was one of them. The great warrior had become a teacher. He ran regular classes on predator behavior and forest ecology. Young Vakthor, who once dreamed only of combat, now also studied tracking and animal psychology. Some discovered they had a gift for it. The change was slow but real. The 15 rescued cubs were now juveniles halfway to adult size. They still visited Han Sol often. They would sit with him in comfortable silence or play near his station while he worked. The bond formed that frightening night had never broken. Their parents joked that Han Sol had 15 shadow cubs who followed him everywhere. One of the cubs, the smallest one who had given him the blue stone, was named Kira. She visited most often. She had shown unusual interest in Han Sol's work. She would watch his monitors for hours, learning to identify different creatures by their movements. HFY had told Han Sol privately that Kira wanted to become a forest guardian when she grew up. The first Vakthor to choose that path, Dr. Wesk, had become famous. His research paper had won awards. He now directed an interspecies behavior institute, studying how different species could learn to communicate and cooperate. He still visited Thorol 4 regularly, always bringing new questions, new ideas. Dr. Yuna's Galactic Ecological Response Team had grown to 30 members. Humans, yes, but also Vakthor, Centaurians, Trell, and others. They responded to crises across multiple star systems, wildlife conflicts, dangerous rescues, ecosystem failures. They did not always succeed, but their success rate was remarkable. And no one had died yet. Understanding and patience saved lives that violence would have cost. Ambassador Kip had proposed new laws at the Galactic Council. Requirements for ecological surveys before colonization, protections for native predators, education programs about coexistence. The laws were slowly passing. The galaxy was learning, one vote at a time. On this particular morning, Han Sol received a visitor. Matriarch HFY walked to his station alone. She knocked gently on his door. He invited her in. She had to duck to enter. Even sitting, she towered over him. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then HFY spoke. "I came to thank you, again. I know I have said it before, but today marks 1 year since you brought my children home. I wanted you to know what that meant, what it still means." "You have thanked me many times," Han Sol said gently. "It is not necessary, it is necessary," HFY insisted. "Before that night, I thought I knew what strength was. I was wrong. You showed me a different kind of strength. The strength to be vulnerable, to admit when you need help, to trust in unusual methods. My people are better for learning this." Han Sol looked out the window at the forest. "I did what anyone would do. Children were lost. I helped find them." "No," HFY said firmly. "Anyone would not do what you did. Most would have tried to fight the forest. You understood it instead. That made all the difference." She paused. "My daughter Kira talks about you constantly. She wants to be like you. To walk between teeth, as we call it. She has the temperament for it," Han Sol said. "Patient, observant, respectful of other creatures. If she wants to learn, I will teach her." HFY's eyes gleamed with emotion. "You have already given us so much. Now you offer more. You truly are family, Keshtan. She used the honor name she had given him, one who walks between teeth. Later that day, Hansol walked into the forest. He did this often simply to observe, to learn, to be present. The forest felt different in winter, quieter. The air was crisp. Many creatures were preparing for the cold months ahead. He heard movement and turned. The forest serpent emerged from the shadows, the great predator that had confronted him a year ago. Its young were with it, now half-grown themselves. The serpent acknowledged Hansol with a slight nod. Hansol returned the gesture. They stood there for a moment, predator and human in perfect understanding. No fear, no threat, just two intelligent beings sharing the same forest. Then the serpent moved on, its young following, teaching them the old paths, the hunting grounds, the safe places, the cycle of life continuing. Hansol continued his walk. He found himself at the clearing where he had found the cubs 1 year ago. The rocks where they had sheltered, the spot where he had sat and waited for them to trust him. So much had changed since that night. He heard voices, young voices. He looked up and saw Kira approaching with several other juvenile Vakthor. They carried small packs like his. They moved quietly, respectfully, the way he had taught them. "Teacher," Kira called out, "we are practicing tracking. May we show you what we found?" Hansol smiled. "Please do." The juveniles eagerly showed him tracks they had identified, scat they had analyzed, signs of different creatures. Some of their observations were wrong. Some were remarkably accurate. Hansol corrected gently, praised genuinely. These young ones were learning. They would carry this knowledge into the future. As they walked back toward the colony together, Hansol thought about how far they had all come. A year ago, the idea of Vakthor juveniles studying ecology would have been laughable. Now it was becoming normal. Change happened slowly, but it happened. That evening, the colony held a celebration. It was officially to mark the anniversary of the successful rescue, but really, it was to celebrate the new understanding that had grown from that night. Representatives from multiple species attended. There were speeches, stories, laughter. Commander Thakran spoke about how his life had changed, how he had learned that true warriors protect not just through strength but through wisdom. His voice was humble. He admitted his past mistakes. He praised the human methods he once scorned. The crowd listened with respect. Dr. Yuna spoke about humanity's role in the galaxy. "We did not come to the stars to conquer. We came to learn, to share, to build bridges between different ways of thinking. Sometimes those bridges span across species. Sometimes they span across the divide between civilization and wilderness. But they all serve the same purpose: connection, understanding, peace." Ambassador Kip announced new initiatives: funding for interspecies education, protection programs for endangered ecosystems, training centers based on human ecological methods. The galaxy was changing, slowly, but the momentum was building. Hansol was asked to speak. He reluctantly agreed. He stood before the crowd, feeling out of place as always. He was not good with public speaking. He preferred the quiet language of the forest. A year ago, he began, 15 cubs went missing. Everyone was terrified. I was asked to help. I did what I knew how to do. I went into the forest. I found the cubs. I brought them home. People have called me a hero for this, but I am not a hero. I am just someone who understands that most conflicts come from fear and misunderstanding. The predators in the forest are not evil. The cubs were not in danger from monsters. They were lost children who needed guidance home. He paused, looking at the faces watching him. Vakthor, humans, Centaurians, Trell, so many different species all listening. The galaxy is full of dangerous creatures, but danger and evil are not the same thing. A predator hunting to feed its young is not evil. It is just surviving. When we understand this, when we respect this, we can find ways to coexist. That is all I did. I chose understanding over fear. Everyone here can do the same. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then they erupted in applause. Not just polite applause, real appreciation, real understanding. These people had learned something important, and they would carry it forward. Later, as the celebration wound down, Hansol slipped away. He returned to his research station. His computer showed new messages, more requests for help, more crises, more opportunities to teach what he knew. He looked at one message in particular: a colony on the edge of known space. New planet, dangerous wildlife. Colonists scared. They needed someone who could help them understand the creatures they feared. Someone who could walk between teeth. Hansel thought about it. He was tired. He wanted to stay here in the forest he knew, with the creatures he understood. But there were more forests out there. More predators. More people who needed to learn that coexistence was possible. He began composing a reply. Yes, he would help. He would go to this new world. He would do what he always did. Observe. Understand. Build bridges between fear and knowledge. A sound made him look up. Kira stood at his door. She held something in her hands. Another stone like the one she had given him a year ago. This one was green, streaked with silver. For luck, she said. For your next journey. Because you will go, yes? You will help others like you helped us? Hansel took the stone. Yes, I will go. Good, Kira said. That is what teachers do. They share what they know. When you return, I will show you everything I learned while you were gone. I will make you proud you already have, Hansel said softly. Kira left and Hansel was alone again. He looked at the two stones on his desk. Blue and green,